Well, good morning, everyone. I am Berkenda with the Orange Chamber of Commerce. I am our Vice Chair of Events, and I'm excited to welcome you to the April installment of Eggs and Issues. Before we get started, I do have a couple of housekeeping reminders. Let's go ahead and change our screen over here. So if you are here with us on the Zoom call, please go ahead and make sure that your audio is muted and your video is turned off. This is also being broadcast live on Facebook. So if you do have any questions, we definitely encourage them. This is an open format, but we do ask you type them into the chat. So if you're on our Zoom call, please go ahead and type those into the chat. I will see them and go ahead and get to those as quickly as possible. If you are on Facebook, you can go ahead and type those in comments. We do have a moderator over there, and they will go ahead and get those over to me as well. Let's go ahead and go back to our other screen. I don't know what is happening today. Tried a new browser. Well, without further ado, it is my pleasure to announce this morning's guest speaker, United States Congressman Lou Correa. Congressman Correa represents Anaheim, Garden Grove, Orange, and Santa Ana in California's 46th district. He formerly served Orange County in California State Assembly, State Senate, and the Orange County Board of Supervisors. Congressman Correa is a longtime Orange County resident with deep local roots. To this day, he lives only 3 miles from his childhood neighborhood. He is a son of working class parents whose hard work gave him a chance at success. He spent his career fighting to protect the American dream and ensure everyone can reach it just as he did. His love for community and family is strong, and most weekends he can be found at community events throughout his district. Congressman, I know you have a busy schedule, and we try to, take so much of your time. You've spent with us a couple of times now. We thank you for joining us this morning. How are you?
Thank you very much, Brenda. I am actually doing very well. Thank you for having me today as your guest. I really enjoy coming and visit with City of Orange and, of course, the Orange Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And it seems so. Last year we talked in June. There was a lot going on in June. Quite a bit of civil unrest. Things were seemingly very uncertain. Disney was closed. There was really no, I don't want to say end in sight, but we were definitely, everything was very virtual. And I feel like now we're getting closer to being at that time where perhaps our next meeting we'll be able to feed you like we normally feed all of our guests that come to visit us in Orange County or visit us at the Orange Chamber. And I hear you were at Kimmy's this morning.
Yes, I was.
So you've already had your coffee and you're good. So if you could tell us kind of what's the state of the economy and things right now, how are things going in Washington?
Well, thank you very much. Where do we start? Let's first of all try to do what is right for Main Street. Everything we do in Washington, D.C. has to fit in to what's going on downtown Orange, downtown in my district. Every weekend I come back and I visit. Just this last weekend I came back and I took an early flight to watch the Orange High School versus Santa Ana High School football game. And that was an exciting game that ended up going to the last 30 seconds of the game. And both teams played excellently, but that's what it's all about, community. So what we've been trying to do since COVID-19 hit was make sure that our constituents did not suffer like we did during the Great Recession of 2008, when many people lost their jobs, lost their houses, lost their livelihoods, a lot of damage to our economy. So when COVID-19 hit, what we try to do, of course, first of all, save lives, make sure that under Project Warp Speed, we had the resources to come up with a vaccine. President Trump kicked off that effort and it was successful. We came up with a vaccine in record time. Next to that, we wanted to make sure we had enough hospital beds for those people that became severely ill. And then right on top of that, we wanted to make sure that our economy kept humming. As you said earlier, our biggest employer here in the area is Disneyland. Disneyland has been closed for more than a year. That's about 20,000 direct jobs and probably 30 to 40,000 jobs when you count all the small restaurants and the other shops that depend on tourism. So we wanted to make sure that the unemployment benefits were there, make sure that the resources were there for small business, especially restaurants, to stay open and to stay alive. And so that was a lot of our effort to make sure that these packages kept our economy moving forward. As I like to say, when you are fighting a war, you know, you think about a foreign adversary, you do what you can to win that war. This war was against COVID-19. Um, and it was a war that I believe we are winning because of America's know-how, our pharmaceutical industry, our innovation. But the war is not over, and I think COVID-19 will be with us for a while. You're going to have COVID-20, and probably in about a year, we're probably all going to have booster shots to make sure that we're still safe from COVID. And remember also from a uh, national defense perspective, um, COVID-19 has shown us that, showed our adversaries that this could be an area that we can get hit militarily, that is with a biological bomb. So we have to rebuild our infrastructure, our healthcare system to make sure that we're protected against these kinds of issues going forward.
And so, from what you can see on your end, do you feel like, because I know we did talk a bit about that, last year, is like, hey, like these are some major issues that have come to light. Do you feel like we're really making strides in that direction and really protecting ourselves, being prepared for, I guess, the COVID-20? Do you feel like we're really making steps in that direction, or do you think that we're still recovering, I guess, from starting the
I
COVID-19?
I think we're assessing where we are at. Clearly, our healthcare
Okay.
system showed that we still have a lot of issues to address when it comes to a pandemic like COVID-19. We still have to figure out how to take care of a population in a more effective manner. And this is not
Mm-hmm.
about, you know, a certain kind of healthcare system, but rather assuring that we are all safe when it comes to a disaster. Uh,
Right.
what COVID-19 has shown us is that at the end of the day, we're a country, we're a people, and these kinds of illnesses know no boundaries, and we have to
Mm-hmm.
respond immediately to them. And these worldwide pandemics do require not only national coordination, but international coordination. You know, when I look at my job in Congress versus my job locally in the county board versus my job at the state, um, the United States is a very complex country with a lot of
Yes.
challenges, and we're trying to plan ahead to make sure we're prepared for COVID-20 and 21. But we always end up having to manage that crisis because as we move that little cart forward, you find out a wheel falls off that you never knew you had on
Yes.
that cart. And so you got to come
Exactly.
back and address it. And so management, good prudence, good planning forces us not only to take care of the immediate challenge, but also to look forward. One of the biggest issues that we have right now is our international competitiveness. We woke up from COVID-19 and we found out we're not the only kid on the block anymore economically. We have
Right.
another country on the other side of the world whose economy is rivaling us right now, who's challenging us in every part of the world. And that doesn't mean we take a defensive posture, but rather what it means is we begin to focus on rebuilding our economy, make sure we have the best technology, make sure we have the best schools, make sure we have the
Mm-hmm.
best infrastructure in place to be better than anybody else in this world. And that means get busy in investing in American jobs, in the American economy right now.
Right. And with that, what do you think our outlook is for the economy over the next 6 to 9 months? So we're in April. So we've got about 9 months left of the year. Yes.
These COVID
9 months.
packages were huge.
Right.
They were big, and they were designed to stimulate our economy to make sure we didn't have a great recession. And I believe it is working. Right now, if you look at the economic growth numbers, we're on track to an economic recovery. We're on track to full employment again. So we are looking good. You look at the stock market, if you believe that's an indicator of the outlook for this country, solid record numbers. And so, you know, we're getting there. We're moving ahead. The question, though, as we move forward, is we look at the infrastructure package, if we look at tax policy, if we look at investment policy, we have to make sure we take those precious dollars that we have and invest them at the right place in this country. One of the things I'm very excited about is we are focusing on a lot of research and development investment. We are
Okay.
making sure that as a country, we continue to have the best technologies, whether it's medical instruments, pharmaceuticals, research and development for the next, whatever technology is there to drive us to the next level to be competitive internationally. So I think we're getting back to basics. And let me say to all of you right now that these are not Democratic or Republican issues. These are American issues. These are issues that are driven by people who are working together. Many of you would watch CNN, the other news channels. I'm not going to mention the other ones, but you would think that there's a lot of partisanship in Washington, D.C., and you would think that we're not working together. And us working together, Democrats and Republicans, is the story is not being told. I'm a member of a group called the Problem Solvers, 30 Republicans, 30 Democrats, working together on things like tax policy, infrastructure. Why? Because when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to taxes, your list of wants is smaller compared to the list of what I'm willing to pay for. So we begin to prioritize. We look at the challenges and needs of not only of Iowa, but downtown Orange, downtown Anaheim, downtown Santa Ana. How can we put that together? And I'm also a member of a few other groups that include US senators as well, Democrats and Republicans, all coming together to work. But you're never going to read those stories. You know why? Because
Right.
people are not interested in listening to boring stories about people working together. You're interested in seeing the bombs going off in committees. You're
Right.
more interested in seeing people yelling at each other. But a lot of us are there to work across the aisle. That's why I was hired. My mandate was to go to Washington to work across the aisle for the benefit of all Americans.
Well, thank you for doing that. And we appreciate that. And you are correct. It's oftentimes that we don't get to hear what you all are doing together. We hear about what went wrong. We don't hear about what things and what steps are going right. So thank you for mentioning that today. It's really important, I think, for our community and for everyone to know that that actually is happening to some degree. It's very important. You mentioned technology, and I noticed I was looking at your weekly recap, but I noticed that you had been talking a lot about broadband. And so I know the pandemic at the beginning, I think all of us were scrambling with, everyone at home, everyone on Wi-Fi. There were so many glitches in the beginning. It seems like that's evened out quite a bit, possibly with some people going back to work, also with the expansion of just the bandwidth, general bandwidth. But do you see any movement on just kind of that rural broadband access, kind of a broadband for all, something that's more cost effective possibly? Like, what do you see on your side as far as discussions on how we're going to even that out?
Big movement in that direction. The infrastructure package talks about broadband and how do we, again, talking about farm area, Iowa, Central California, but also talking about Central Orange County, our area. I just talked yesterday to one of the local community college chancellors who told me, he said, Lou, my students, because they can't come in a classroom, are learning virtual, but they have to park in our parking lot because this is the only place they can get good broadband. And what COVID-19 has shown us is that broadband is kind of like electricity was 100 years ago. Everybody wanted electricity 100 years ago. Today, everybody needs broadband, not only for learning, but for working, as well as telehealth. This has pushed, healthcare. Now you get on a screen, you talk to the doctor, and you take your vitals over the internet. And so it's revolutionizing the way we do things. Of course, there's some negatives because we have a lot of hackers around the world that are trying to mess with us. And that's a whole different other issue. I sit on Homeland Security and we're trying to address that issue. But, broadband as a whole is something we're going to focus on, not only on the infrastructure package, but me personally, I'm trying to work with a coalition with a group of individuals here in Central Orange County to say, how do we roll out better broadband connectivity coverage in Central Orange County? We start out by creating an inventory. What are the assets that we have? What are the opportunities that we have? And what is it that we need to do to invest in those areas to create a web of communication not only for today, but it's flexible for tomorrow. 5G, 6G, 7G. You know, we can't even begin to imagine what technologies, what breakthroughs we'll have in 5 to 10 years. So we want to take a good planning approach to make sure that we are competitive as a place for businesses to continue to grow here in Central Orange County and for people to live and prosper.
Definitely. And I think, what you mentioned as far as like the students having to go to the parking lot, I work a lot with the Chapman students. I know that they do that as well. I talk to them on the phone. They're like, oh yeah, we like sit in the parking lot, or there's, they go to one person's house where everybody, most of them are vaccinated, but they go to somebody's house and they all like study, and they're all set up all over the place just to use broadband. So it would be nice as that's coming to fruition to see how that transpires for sure.
Well, I got to tell you, when COVID-19 hit, all my college students' children came
Yes.
home, and we were all fighting for broadband. So that was quite an interesting experience. I had to call my local provider and said, give me the Cadillac package, whatever you got, I'll take it. And I want it right now. And I think we survived through most of it.
That's good. You have, let's see, is that Cal State Fullerton, USC, and one more, correct?
I have 2 at USC, 1 at Cal State Fullerton. And so we've got 3 in another work in the area as well.
Very nice. Glad it all worked out as far as the Wi-Fi. Well, I do know that nearly $30 million, Janet just actually popped this into the chat, and it was kind of next to my list, is that $30 million is coming from the American Rescue Plan to the city of Orange. Would you be able to expand on that?
Right. Part of the rescue package, we had 2 big rescue packets. The first one, no money to cities under 500,000 population. So that was the one we passed last year, and that was brutal for us because there isn't any city in Orange County that's above 500,000 people. See, we're kind of left out of that package. This package, every city gets a certain amount of money based on a certain formula that says this is what you will need to move ahead. And the 30 million are coming to City of Orange to make sure, for example, that you prioritize what you believe. A lot of flexibility there, that you invest that money in the way you need to. City, public safety, police officers, firefighters, public works people, make sure that you don't have to lay these people off. Every time you lay off a person, that means somebody is going to not be able to pay their mortgage or their rent. And that creates a contractionary movement in terms of our economy. And again, coming back to our goal was to make sure, one of our goals, to make sure we did not have a recession from COVID-19.
Right.
But I would caution the city of Orange, I would caution you, make sure you spend that money wisely. Okay, you don't want to have an auditor come back in a year and say, how did you spend the money? Well, we want some of it back. You got to be careful.
Definitely. Well, thank you for all that you did to help get that over to our city, and we will spend it wisely. From your lips to the lips of the ears of the city council and to our mayor Murphy. So I know they're working probably tediously on how to distribute that and tracking all of those great things. I trust them. As far as some new congressional members, we have some new congressional members from Orange County on both sides of the aisle. How are you guys working together so far?
I work well with my congressional members, Ms. Steele, Ms. Young Kim. I've known them for many years. I've known them when I was in Sacramento. We have existing relationships, and I carry those relationships with me. And that's what, what it's about. It's about knowing people, working with them. And at the end of the day, some of the issues that I've worked for and with Orange County are, for example, taxpayer equity. I want to make sure that every dollar we send to Sacramento or to Washington, that we get as much of a dollar back as possible, whether it's property tax or something else. For example, right now, we are talking about a new infrastructure package, a new package on infrastructure. And the big issue is going to be, how do you pay for it? And there's a discussion about all kinds of different taxes that are going to be raised. I'm one of the first ones to put my hand up and say, look, I want to not raise, but I want to lower a tax in the state of California. And that's the SALT state and local tax deductibility under the prior administration, they put a cap on how much you could deduct, okay, on your personal taxes, that in my opinion hit the middle class hard. And we want to take that cap off and say, if you have these deductions, you should be able to deduct them off your personal taxes. That's the SALT, state and local income tax deductions. And I want to blow that cap off and say, in high priced, high expensive areas to live like California, you can take full deduction of those state and local taxes on your federal tax form. The other issue is one on gas tax. Everybody thinks it's a good idea to fund infrastructure with a gasoline tax, except for the fact that California has the highest gas taxes in the country. So
Yes,
I need to hear from you. I need to hear from my constituents. Are we going to add, 10, 20 cents more per gallon? And what is it that we're going to get back? Because Orange County is called a self-help county. We raise our own taxes to pay for our infrastructure. We've done a good job, measure M squared, measure M2. And we are pretty good at moving our population. We're very dense, one of the densest areas in the state of California in terms of population, but we're able to move, transport people relatively well compared to other counties. We've done a good job. OCTA has done an excellent job. And now the issue becomes, as I look at that infrastructure package in Washington, how does it affect Main Street? Is the gas tax a way to do it? Is elimination of SALT something I want to do? And right now, I'd say I'm looking at those very closely, because those are issues that will affect all of us on Main Street.
That's true. And as far as the infrastructure, what can Orange County really look forward to as far as how that's going to look for us as a county?
Well, what we want is more funds for brick and mortar, for transportation projects. As we talked a little while ago, broadband. And right now what I'm doing is essentially taking an inventory, talking to people in my district about what projects are important to you. What is it that we can do to move forward to make our lives that much better in Orange County? If Orange County was, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, that's what I was gonna ask you, is like, I want to make sure that everyone who's listening and who's participating this morning, that we're all included. Like, let us know what we can do to help further that as well, please.
I'd love to engage with you in that discussion of what projects you would like to see funded in Orange County. And also keep in mind that we want to make sure that these are projects that are going to help not only us, but our children as well. We're investing that dollar for the long term.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Let's talk vaccines for a moment. So what is the status of vaccines? As far as I know, your wife is a doctor, so maybe you have some also further insight on that, but what's the status of vaccines in the county? Percentage of people getting vaccinated? Do we have any concerns as it's being, more heavily rolled out?
Well, let me say that early in December, when the vaccines first came out under President Trump, under his Project Warp Speed, we got the vaccines out early. First one out was Pfizer, approved, ready to go. And I called the local county health medical doctor, Dr. Clayton Chow, and I said, I have a choice, Dr. Chow. I can either wait in line, be one of the last ones, or I can get in front of the line and be an example to others and take the vaccine. And he said, Lou, take the vaccine early so you can show people that it is safe. And that's what I did. I had a vaccine shot. I put it on Facebook. I wanted to make sure people knew that if there was anything wrong with this Pfizer vaccine, I'd probably be the first one that was going to go down. And I had the vaccine in late December. I had the second shot January 6th. That's, by the way, the day I got infected, because that was the day we had the invasion of the Capitol, and a lot of people close to each other cross-infecting each other. A lot of us got infected. But today, like everything else in and the manufacturing process, the early ramp up time, a lot of demand, very few. Now I believe we're getting to the point we have excess supply of vaccines. I got an email yesterday from a local vaccination center saying we have 1,000 vaccines. Can you send us people because we need to get them out? And there are still a lot of people that have not gotten vaccinated. And the challenge that we're having is people don't want to get the second dose. People forget about the second dose. People think they don't want to have it. People think it's dangerous even now. And people just don't want it. And what we want to do is get to what we talked about over a year ago, herd immunity. Everybody, so that we can get back to normal. We want to get back to normal. We all have to be vaccinated. I've had COVID-19. I had the vaccination. It's interesting because in my house where I live, I had COVID. My daughter had COVID. My wife didn't have COVID. My two other kids didn't have COVID. So you saw us kind of walking around the house 10 feet apart from each other all the time for 10 days while I self-isolated. And my wife couldn't afford to have COVID because
Definitely
she's a
not.
doc and she's
Right.
deals with patients and does surgeries. So she had to completely isolate herself from the rest of us. But to answer your question, I think the vaccines are there. People call my office if you want to line up for a vaccine. But right now, it's no questions asked, first come, first serve, and you'll get the vaccine. And by the way, I think our next step as a country, we've invested so much on these vaccines, research and development, getting them to the patient, so to speak. I think we're going to continue to produce them. And right now is a good time for us to figure out a way to distribute them for the rest of the world. We take care of Americans, and then we show our goodwill. We have the other kid on the other side of the block, China, and they have this Silk Road around the world, and they're building bridges, building ports, building things for people in Africa, South America, all the way around the world. And our strength, research and development. We have the best pharmaceutical industry in the world. We should share our know-how with others around the world. It just makes sense. It just makes sense.
Right, especially as we're heading into a surplus.
Correct. And right now you begin to see that. And as I've said, I suspect COVID is not going away. You'll have another variant coming up in a few months, and you'll have, just like the flu, you're going to have your local vaccination, your local booster every year. You see right now, India, the situation they're having, which is a massive emergence of COVID, and they're in big trouble. And I think that's where Americans step up and do what Americans do best, which is to save lives.
Correct. Help save lives and also help others, which is something that we've always been known for. And I do want to note for all of our followers and listeners is that we also have, I guess it's our first clinic in Orange. We are offering the vaccine through the chamber, and there are 4 different dates and times and locations. So if you look on our Facebook page or Instagram page, we do have those available to you as well. And so it's very easy for you to sign up and go there and go ahead and get vaccinated if that's what you'd like to do.
Well, I'm going to compete with you. If anybody wants a vaccine, needs a vaccine, call my office. More than happy to give you a recommendation in the area as well. And my phone number is 714-559-6190. 559-6190. Thank you.
Janet, if you could type that in the chat, and then also Elisa, I know you're on Facebook. If you could go ahead and type that in the comments on Facebook, that way or link it if you'd like. That way everyone has access to Congressman Correa's information to go ahead and get vaccinated.
And by the
You're
way,
welcome.
in my family, we've had Pfizer, we had Moderna, and we had Johnson & Johnson. So we've had all of them.
You've had the full gamut. You're just like the best little test case of seeing how did everybody react, what reactions, everyone
different reactions.
Which is great.
My only advice to all of you is that after you get the vaccine, you do some exercise. After I got my shots, I went to the gym and worked out, and that seemed to really help, move that stuff around in my arm, so I wasn't sore at all.
That's good. Well, it looks like I have a question coming in. One second. Let me just go ahead and check to see what that question is. This is from somebody on our Zoom call. Will there be any improvements to the trains, Amtrak, Arctic, et cetera, or other mass transit via the current infrastructure proposals? One of the largest issues affecting our local area is congestion and difficulty in getting to work quickly and efficiently. We have 22 employees and a few commute from the i.e. Inland Empire. I'm very interested to hear if there are any projects in the works to improve their access to our local area.
And the answer is yes. And the answer is yes, 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 yes. The issue with the Inland Empire and the 91 freeway, I've been working on that project probably most of my elected career. I was the author that actually wrote the law that create the 91 freeway toll road that actually got rid of the no compete clause. A lot of gobbledygook, but we created the toll road on the 91, added lanes, and now we've been trying for a long time to add even more lanes and more rail transport, 91 connecting Orange County to the Inland Empire. And those are projects that'll continue to work. Of course, all of us have seen the 5 freeway expand to what seems like 20 lanes each way. But
Yes.
also, there's also the other project, which is one of that I'm very interested in, which is the old red line rail system that goes from Santa Ana all the way to downtown Los Angeles. If you ever look at a map, this is a straight line that we used 100 years ago by the red car. And then it was eliminated, but Orange County Transportation Authority still owns that right of way. So we still have that chunk of land that one of these days, it is my hope that we build another rail car and really relieve congestion from Orange County to downtown LA.
Yeah, that is one of the things that's very difficult. If you are looking to take public transportation, and just looking at different public transit routes, it's not necessarily easy to get from Orange County to the middle of Los Angeles by public transportation as it stands today. And if there was a line, that would be so much easier.
And that's
like a direct line.
And that's the challenges coming up with, the passengers, making it easy for people to travel back and forth. My private sector, I used to work as a banker downtown Los Angeles for almost a decade, and traveling from Anaheim there back and forth every day just kills you. It killed me. I mean, it's just a difficult grind, but that's what I had to do to, earn a living.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Commuting is not fun sometimes. Well, I have a question that came in from Facebook, it looks like. Does the Orange community have the opportunity for input on how the $30 million from the American Rescue Plan is spent? Or is that a question for
I think that's a question for the city council, and I hope to God that you do, because that's the way it's supposed to work. I know some of the other cities, and I'm sure Orange has too, is asking for suggestions on how to invest that money. So I would look up your local city council member and ask them, or tell them, this is what I want done with the $30 million.
Sounds good. Thank you for that. Well, what do we think about the new normal? We talked about a little bit about things getting back to normal, the herd immunity, but as far as what our new normal looks like with regarding to mask regulations, social distancing, capping of events, where do you see us, I guess, right now, and where are we headed with those types of restrictions, do you think?
President Biden has said his target is for July 4th to be back to normal. I'm not quite sure what that means, but it means that we should be just essentially the way we were before the pandemic, fully operational, fully open. What makes it interesting is that we have 50 states with 50 different jurisdictions and local cities, local school districts that have their own decision making as well. So at the federal level, though, our goal is to be fully operational and back to normal July 4th, so to speak. Don't hold me to it, but that's our goal. That's our target. And also, like I said, looking forward, learning to live with a pandemic. managing it. What we found out, for example, was most of our pharmaceuticals, most of our chemicals that make pharmaceuticals are manufactured outside the country. Most of our protective gear is manufactured outside the country. So when COVID-19 hit, there was a shortage because those countries where these products are manufactured wanted to keep these products at home for their domestic use. So we were caught off guard completely. And this is one of those lessons we don't want to relearn again. We want to make sure that our industry, our economy, our manufacturing base is designed to protect us Americans. And this is not being isolationist, but rather saying we can do this at home. We can take care of Americans. And at the right time, we can also help India take care of Indians. So we want to make sure we're also a resource to the world, but we want to make sure under the new normal that we are prepared for this eventuality in the future.
Definitely. Okay, that makes sense. And I did hear something as well about the 4th of July kind of being that like target as far as things looking normal again. And it seems like a lot of cities, especially here in the county, are planning for items, planning events, whether it not be on the 4th of July, because it is a bit late to start planning for a celebration of sorts, like our normal celebrations. But for sure in August, I know we're looking at doing street fair, I believe is coming back in August in Orange. So there's a lot of planning in the works for what that looks like as far as the new normal.
And that's why I ask people to get the vaccination. Please get the vaccination. I want to be out there at the Orange Street Fair, and I want to make sure as many people as possible are vaccinated. There are medical reasons you don't get it, but most of us should, if you can, please get vaccinated.
I do have another question here on Zoom, and that says, hello, I run an engineering and manufacturing company in Orange. It has been very difficult to find and apply for resources, R&D grants, manufacturing programs, et cetera, made available by the various stimulus packages. Does your office have any information or guidance for local businesses to take advantage of those?
We do, and we're happy to help. Again, 714-559-6190. Call our office. We will try to connect you with the people that can help you apply for some of those programs that are there to help your firm stay in business and grow. That's what it's about. And I know there's been a lot of challenges. We get phone calls all the time from people not getting their unemployment benefits from the state, federal money to the state. Then locals can't access it because the state has been overwhelmed by this number of applications. And number two, the state has had the challenge of internet fraud. People, using your IDs fraudulently to look into those benefits and steal them. So the state has had to respond with, other measures to certify that those claims are legitimate. Translation, the whole system slows down. But we're happy to help. We're a federal office. We work with a local state senator, Tom Umberg, local assembly member, Tom Daly, all of us working together, and with, of course, the other locals, whoever it is we need to work with, we will work to make sure you get results.
Thank you. Well, we normally talk about something that's kind of a feel good. I know that you're out and about in the community. I like to keep track of you on Facebook and Twitter.
Oh my.
Also on Instagram. Yeah. So tell us something. I mean, I know you've been out, but is there anything, good that you can share that's going on? I know we've had some stories and people have, a lot of stories of success. There have been a lot of hardships, but have you seen anything good and amazing and positive in the community lately?
Berkenda, what I've seen that I just love is to see how Americans have come together in this crisis. I'm out every weekend when I'm at home, either food distributions or vaccination drives. And you see volunteers going out of their way, taking their weekend hours early in the morning, putting together food drives, food distributions, people stepping up, helping each other out. And it's important that we capture this moment because government cannot do it all for us. Government is part of the solution, but the central thing that makes things happen is community activism. Neighbors helping neighbors, neighbors watching for each other. And that's what really warms my heart, is seeing people stepping up and saying, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to watch for you. It's the old Boy Scout helping the senior walk across the street. I see a lot of that right now, and I just love it. And that makes me think that we have so much potential, so much opportunity as Americans. We still care about each other. Again, you're not going to read about this in the newspapers. You're going to hear about the division, the things that are going out there. But if you stop to look at what's going on Main Street, we're actually doing some good stuff. And it's not Lou doing it, it's our neighbors that are stepping up to do it. And that's beautiful.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely nice to see people. I feel like now more than our last chat for sure, people are more inclined to be helpful, also to, to help their neighbors, and to just, everyone has really come together, it seems like, very nicely. So it is nice to see that having returned and continue, basically.
Very true.
Let's see if we have any other questions. One sec. I saw one and I'm scrolling. One moment. So we have a question regarding the redistricting. How is redistricting following the latest census going to affect our local area? Does that make sense?
Great question. Thank you very much. And as you know, yesterday, a national announcement was made about 12 p.m., almost 24 hours ago, that, based on the census, what states would be picking up congressional seats, which means, congressional delegates to elect the president, who would win and who would lose. California, for the first time in the history of California, we're actually losing a congressional seat. We almost lost 2 seats. And states like Texas, I believe, picked up 3 seats. So what it tells you is, although California continues to grow, it's not growing at the same pace as a Texas would be growing. And all of us have heard the stories about people moving in, moving out. And so what it told me yesterday is, we've lost the seat. We're probably going to have our redistricting done in a way that reflects that population loss. I suspect most of the information I've gotten is that congressional seat that was lost will be in Los Angeles. Central Los Angeles somewhere will be impacted the most. My seat, I lost, and I didn't lose, but I'll have to expand a little bit to pick up a few thousand in terms of population. So I will probably expand a little bit. I don't see much change in my seat, but who knows, we'll see what happens. Inland Empire, Riverside, San Bernardino, that area gained in population. So you may see those seats getting smaller geographically. In San Diego will probably be a wash. With that being said, remember that in California a number of years ago, and I supported this movement, we have an independent redistricting commission, an independent commission that draws the congressional seats, state Senate seats, and assembly seats, all done by a neutral group of individuals who are getting the data in December. And based on that data, they will determine how to cut up the seats in California. I thought it was a better way than having electeds who are looking after themselves, have a neutral group that's doing it. And so they'll decide probably in December, January, what those seats are going to look like. There's a lot of rules they have to follow in cutting up those seats. You try not to cross county boundaries. You try not to break up cities. You try not to break up communities of interest. You try not to do it. You don't do it by Democrat or Republican. That's a no-no. You do it based on other factors. So we'll have to see what it looks like.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. We have another question from Facebook. So, touching on the infrastructure package again, how likely do you think the administration's healthcare human infrastructure plan will be included in the final package?
That is interesting. Something will be included. The question is how and in what form will that healthcare be included? And as I mentioned earlier, I think COVID-19, if it showed us one thing, is how vulnerable we are to these kinds of attacks. And our healthcare system is still not prepared to address pandemics as quickly as possible. So I would imagine we will be investing in that area. And I would imagine that we'll be making some changes. Let me distinguish that discussion with healthcare policy. I mean, people talk about Medicare for All, the Affordable Care Act. That's a separate debate going on altogether. What President Biden has said is he's interested in, and he is strengthening the Affordable Care Act that was put together under President Obama. And he's looking at increasing how many people or the number of people that are eligible for Medicare. That's called the public option. And I see that expanding, growing. So that's where I see things going. But again, it's too early for that discussion to conclude.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So California, one of the hot topics I've seen everywhere, and we've all seen it, is the recall information. So what are insights on our state leadership as it stands right now, and where things are headed?
Well, thank you, because this is the second recall I've seen. The first one was, of course, Governor Gray Davis was caught with the energy crisis. And the energy crisis, as if I may remind all of you, was a product of the way energy policy was set up 99, 2000, no, 95, 96, 97. In those years where we had electric companies be divorced from their generating capacity. So you had supposedly to create competition, but what it did was it gave people like Enron the opportunity to corner the market and then to drive prices through the roof in California. And as you can remember, people paying thousands, hundreds of dollars for their local utility bills. It was a disaster. And that was what got Gray Davis recalled. And he was a victim of that. Now, Texas just had their energy crisis a few weeks ago, a few months ago. And it just shows that, energy is a policy we have to still explore. What kind of, system, do you have a microgrid or national grid? Those things are still under discussion. In the national security behind those. You have a new recall, which is our governor being recalled primarily because of COVID-19. Okay. COVID-19 has hurt California like it's hurt other states. And so that is the recall going on right now, is based, in my opinion, on COVID-19 and the frustration. Yesterday it was announced, I believe, that there will be a recall, there will be an election, a vote, and the chances then we'll see if he actually is, recalled, meaning he loses his job. I think it's going to be very difficult to take out a sitting incumbent governor. But I think if anybody puts their guard down, I think that would be unwise. As elected officials, you just have to keep working hard. I mean, that's the best way to campaign, is just to keep working really hard. And, I haven't talked to the governor lately, but if he was asking me my opinion, I'd say, Governor, just keep working hard, and let's do the right thing for Californians, get us back to work and get us back to school.
Right. Well, thank you for your insight on that. And it looks like we're at about the 3-minute warning, and I want to be conscious of your time because I know that you're busy. Do you have any last message for our Orange County, our City of Orange business community?
Just to the business community, to the residents of Orange, it's been an honor to represent you. For me to do the best job I can is to hear from you. And so I spend a lot of time listening more than talking. I welcome the opportunity to hear what you think we need to do in Washington to make sure that your life here on Main Street is better. So please don't be a stranger. I'm out there a lot. I hang out a lot. I'm down in the circle all the time, having coffee, maybe lunch. And please, I'm hoping we get back to normal soon so that we can have some real live coffee chats and talk about what your concerns are. Thank you very much, and God bless. And let's get busy.
Thank you so much, Congressman. Like I said, I know that you're so busy. We definitely appreciate your time. I did want to add, we received so many kudos that you took the time today to be with us, to answer the questions from the community. One of those questions was somebody that Miss Rachel Rolnicki, over at Chalk. And so we're just so happy that you were able to come here and just talk to your constituents and be here with us today. So before we head out, I do have a couple of announcements. First of all, thank you so much to the Toll Roads. The Toll Roads is a proud partner with the Orange Chamber. If you'd like to see more about them, visit thetollroads.com to sign up for Fast Track, make changes to your account, and learn about current projects and initiatives. I know there was some talk about the tollways, so that's where you can learn more about those specifically. As far as events coming up, we have our Lunch and Learn. That's going to be on May 11th at 12 p.m., and it will be easy tips to make your business more sustainable. Next, we have BNG, our business networking group that's open to all in the community and our members. That's going to be May 19th at 12 p.m. as well, also on Zoom. Our next Eggs and Issues is going to be May 25th at 9 a.m. I will have more details coming out for that, as it looks like we may host that in studio, so that might just be over the Zoom. And then as far as what we're doing out and about in the streets, as I mentioned earlier, we do have our COVID vaccination clinic, and the flyer is on Facebook and also on Instagram. So I also want to thank our sponsors. Let me just get over to our sponsor page so you guys can see who those are. We have so many: Chapman CR&R, Chapman Crafted, Ricky Realty, Thompson Building Materials, SoCal Gas, Toyota of Orange, RJ Noble, Chalk, Selman, one second, let me move that, Selman Chevrolet, Coviette, SA Recycling, Reyes Coca-Cola, Carefree Home Care, Embassy Suites, and Guzman and Gray CPAs. Thank you so much for all that you guys do for the chamber. If you'd like to reach out, I know the Congressman has given you his phone number, which is amazing. We appreciate your availability to the community. We also have his website here, and we also have our website if you'd like to find out what's going on at the chamber. And with that, we are at 10:01. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.